Hi, my name is Miss Claire, and today I will be teaching you something awesome about the English language. We can ask questions in different ways. We can ask questions that are not really questions, and we can also um, answer questions with a question. Let's start. Let me share my screen with you. So we can start with the presentation. Questions can be divided into many different things. We can have polite questions. We can have questions about different things and activities, but they can also be questions to confirm or identify information. Sometimes those questions don't necessarily have to have all of the information because we are not sure. So, to begin, what kinds of questions do we ask? We have questions that include could, would, and do you mind? Do you mind? Those are polite questions. And in most cases, polite questions have to do with being in a situation where you don't know people. Forms of questions that include tag questions are those questions that we need to confirm for yes or no. Normally, we know the information and we're just confirming. And then question tags are the answers or that short little question at the end of an actual sentence, an affirmative or a negative sentence, and then a tag question to confirm the information. We will watch a video on this a little bit later, but here are the four types of questions. General questions. We have questions that include yes and no. Those questions are usually information that is simple, that requires only a yes or a no to answer. For example, I ask something like, do you want to have dinner? You would say yes or no. We'll go into these in detail a little bit later. Special questions have WH words. So those require a little bit more information, the what, which, where, why, and then also how, which is within these questions, the five W's and the H. And then we have choice questions. Those are usually the ones that answer to which, something, this or that, usually from a selection or a choice. And lastly, the disjunctive or tag tail questions. Sometimes they're called in different ways. We have tail questions or tag questions, which are at the end of a sentence to confirm information for a yes or a no. And those require a little bit more attention. So we'll go into detail for all of these, each of them one at a time. The general yes or no questions are the common ones that we use all the time. They are the logical answers of yes or no. We will go to a store and say, is this on sale? And the sales associate will say, yes, it is, or no, it isn't. Those questions relate to sentences that we cannot separate from the main element of it. So, do you like this country? Yes, I do. Usually using the question word to answer in most cases. Does Jane know about your new job? Yes, she does. Can I call my sister? Yes, I can. Is it cold outside? Yes, it is. Are they ready for the trip? No, they're not. Sometimes we answer in the negative to complete that sentence in the answers. The special questions, special questions are those included in the W's and H, like I said before, the what, which, who, why, and when. What is this will require more information than a yes or a no. So what is this? This is a mouse. Requires more information, so we use the W's. They are formed in a little bit of a different way. Notice that when we have, and we'll go back slowly to each of these. The questions that are general, usually the yes and no's, are built with modals or the verb do. You use do you, and the answer would be inverted. Yes, I do. Does Jane? Yes, Jane does. Not necessarily using does all the time. This is how you would build it, though. Can I? I cannot, right? Whereas the W questions, where you say, what is this? You use the regular structure of subject and verb. This, to substitute for the noun, is a, and then you use a noun, mouse. Which is a selection. Which of these is a mouse? And you would say, this is a mouse, not this one. This is not a mouse, right? So the construction of that sentence is a little bit different. Then we have who. Who is this? And you would build it in the same way, basically substituting the word who for the demonstrative this. This is a person, and this person is my friend, Julia. Why is usually answered in the same exact way, but you answer with a full context answer. Why is this useful? And you would usually use the word because in these answers. Because usually precedes the entire answer, because it is used with computers. When do we use a mouse? We use a mouse most of the time. You can use the longer version of the sentence, or you can say, when we need it. Simple. How is this used? And then these usually require a longer explanation because how to questions require steps and more information in order to fulfill the answer. How do we use this? Well, a mouse is connected to a computer and it uses information to move information on the computer across and so on and so forth. Then we have the next type of questions, the choice questions. Choice questions are specifically important because those give us the or in a sentence. For example, does she like ice cream? Excuse me. Does she like ice cream or does she like sweets? She likes ice cream would be a choice within this types of sentence. Where would you go? To the cinema or the theater? I would go to the cinema, would be the answer to this question. So essentially, there's not a lot of change here. You just answer with the correct choice information. However, the question concerns the subject. The auxiliary verb comes before the second option. So does she make it or do you? She does would be the simplest. I make it and so does she would be a more complicated way of answering because you're selecting both, but you have to be careful in the way that you choose the order of that sentence. But we'll get into that a little bit later. So what are tag questions? And this is the star of today's lesson. The tag questions are those that we have at the end of a sentence when we don't know the information exactly. We don't necessarily actually ask a question. We say a statement and we have to change the level of our voice in order to produce these questions. So remember the previous ones that we had. We had general questions which answer to yes or no. We have special questions which answer to W, H, and H, how questions. And then choice questions which answer to which. So which would we answer to which? These questions. Disjunctive or tag tail questions have to do with that ending. Didn't she? Aren't you? Is she? Notice I have them in bold because these require a special kind of rule. Let's say I ask a question based on something that I already know. For example, I'm going to highlight this so you can see it. Excuse me. She For example, sent him an invitation. This is a full sentence. The sentence already contains information that is important for a regular sentence. Subject, verb in the past tense, an object to the sentence, and the rest of the sentence is the predicate. An invitation. If I say she sent him an invitation, I am stating that someone who is a woman, female, sent a man or a male an invitation. But let's say I don't know the answer to this question entirely. I would use a tag question to confirm. So what would I do here? I would use the subject of the sentence. Notice it gets complicated when there's an object, but in this case, the subject is the one we are asking about. She sent an invitation. How do we form the question for she sent? You would use the auxiliary word for she, does. But because this is a past tense, we need did, which works for any subject, right? So we use it in the negative. Why do we use it in the negative? Well, that's when it gets even more complicated. She sent is a positive statement. Then the tag needs to be negative in order for this to work. So if the question is positive, the answer, or not the answer, but the tag question needs to be negative. The answer is in the positive because the person confirming the answer to us will answer with a positive. She sent him an invitation, didn't she? Yes, she did would be the answer to the confirmation. Or no, she didn't to confirm if she did not. Right? Let's go to another example. You aren't getting married, are you? No, I'm not. Notice in this case, we are using the verb to be. The verb to be is even more complicated because it has special rules. So you have to be careful with this one. But because we find the you in the conjugation of the verb to be, you are, we use the same and just invert it. Are you? If it's negative, it would be aren't you? But notice the verb is in negative already. So the answer has to be in the positive. Remember we had here the positive question with a negative answer. Well, here it's a little bit different. We have a negative question with the positive answer. And also remember that it's not really a question. It's actually a sentence. And it's not affirmative. It's a negative sentence. So the tag must be in the positive. Jane isn't in France, is she? Here we have the subject Jane, and then the answer is actually the pronoun she. This is also acceptable. We can substitute it for Jane because in the tag, we don't use proper names. We use the pronoun for that name. So notice this is also negative where this is positive, and it's also the verb to be, but it's a conjugation for she, mainly talking about Jane. No, she isn't. Our dad will come soon, won't he? Now, these can get a little bit complicated because they are modals. Modals, or helping verbs, as we call them sometimes, refer to future sentences, possible sentences, permission sentences, and so on and so forth. We will use the positive of it with the negative. We will practice these in just a minute, but to review, if it's a positive statement, the tag is a negative. If it's a negative statement, the tag is a positive. And you always use the form of the verb that you have at the beginning of the sentence to answer it. Now, for I, there's a little bit of a complication, and I don't know if I included it in my presentation here, but there's a bit of a complication. Let's say I'm talking about me. There it is. If I say I am going with you, it's kind of weird because if I were going with you, I would know, right? But sometimes we don't know because maybe we need an invitation. So if we need an invitation, we would say something like this. I am going with you, aren't I? And I'm a bit confused, notice here, but it's okay. That's why we're using these questions to clarify the answer. Yes, you are, would be the answer to this. But notice I'm not using the correct form for I am. I am using aren't I. This is the rule for this type of sentence. But if I say the open or not contracted form, I can use am I not. And this can be a little bit complicated, but it takes a little bit of practice. You can't say, I'm a great person, am I not? It doesn't sound right. It's confusing to people. So you have to contract it and use the aren't I to make it a clear. I know we always tell you to use the correct form of the verb, but in this case, it's okay to use the aren't I to use for the tag question. Then the last thing here would be, and let's go a little bit deeper, intonation. The intonation of the sentence makes a difference. This is why. If I ask something like snow is white, and then I want to confirm because I already know this is a really well-known answer. Snow is white, and I already know. So how do I say it to confirm? To confirm, my voice will follow a certain pattern. And then if I don't know, if I'm like 90% unsure, it will rise in a certain pattern. So I know snow is white, but I'm confirming because I'm partially blind, right? What do I ask a person? Snow is white, isn't it? Right? My voice goes down. Notice if I say this when someone doesn't like me and I'm not sure, it's kind of uncomfortable as it is, right? But if someone doesn't like me and I want to confirm it, I go with the rising in the voice. You don't like me, do you? And it's kind of confusing to people when you don't like them. So this is a good question to know. You don't like me, do you? Whereas I know if someone doesn't like me, and then I use the following voice. You don't like me, do you? You don't like me, do you? You don't like me, do you? Notice that the sound of the voice goes or down. I always tell people it's like having a happy smile and then down because I'm sad. That's kind of how we differentiate it too, but it takes a lot of practice. So that's the part where I want to get to before we do a quick review. Positive statements, not questions, have negative statements. Negative statements have positive tag. You aren't coming, aren't you? We have finished, haven't we? You like coffee, don't you? You aren't coming, are you? We haven't finished, have we? And you like coffee. You don't like coffee, do you? I need to correct this slide there. Yes, teachers need to be corrected also in this grammatical sense. Snow is white, isn't it? Yes, it is. And snow is white, isn't it? Yes, it is. Answering with a simple yes is also good. It's a correct answer. Or answering with a simple no is also a good answer. So last thing I want to do before we go, because we're running out of time, is do this practice. But you don't really love her. What is the tag here? This will work. Is it do you or don't you? It's neither. It would be this will work. We use, remember, the will in this tag, not the verb work. Will it or won't it? You think so? do you or don't you? If he answered don't you, then it would be correct because don't you is a negative form for the positive affirmative statement that you just saw, and so on and so forth. We can take a tag question quiz that I have attached here. I will send it to you via your inbox. Let me open it and share it with you. It's part of a page outside of my presentations, but I'll share with you right here and show you how to do this quiz. And then you can just send me the answers directly to my inbox. Here you have a possibility for answers. I'm going to answer just like this. I will get, of course, some wrong ones, some right ones. I just want you to see how simple this is, multiple choice answers. And then I don't know if leaving the blank ones will work, but we'll try. And then we'll just check the answers. And then it gives you the correct answers. I got a 10%. Wow. I need to practice my tag questions, don't I? All right. So this was today's lesson. For questions and tag questions, I want you to have a wonderful week, and I will see you in the next class. Bye bye.